Black Widow is the 24th installment in the MCU franchise and is directed by Kate Shortland. For obvious reasons, this was one of my most anticipated releases of 2021. Not only has there not been an MCU movie released in 2 years, not only have I been wanting to see a standalone Black Widow movie for quite some time, but it was one of the major delays that kept happening in 2020. This thing was pushed back countless times, and the anticipation for it kept growing larger and larger. When it was finally released yesterday, or Friday, since this is Sunday, I don't know. I wrote the script on Saturday, just saying. I went and saw it in theaters on opening day, on Friday. It feels incredible to finally be able to say that once again. Seeing an MCU movie on opening day or even weekend was something I've been doing for over 6 years. Ever since Age of Ultron came out, I've gone to every MCU's theatrical release either on opening day or opening weekend. Even though I'm not a fan of every single Marvel movie, I am a pretty big fan of the MCU, and to me, each of them are an event, and it felt really great to be able to do that again. Now, Black Widow has been one of my favorite Marvel characters for quite some time now. Played to absolute perfection by Scarlett Johansson, the casting of this character was just so perfect that I can't think of Black Widow without thinking of Scarlett Johansson. She is that character, on the same lines as Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn and Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. And honestly, Black Widow is one of the most consistently great characters throughout the MCU, and her death in Endgame felt like a great conclusion to her arc. To me, this character is one of the best parts of the MCU, and her finally getting her own standalone movie is something that I personally thought was long overdue. And really, Black Widow did not disappoint for me. Surprisingly, I've seen a decent amount of negative backlash towards this movie, many citing it as one of the weaker entries in the MCU. As I was watching the film, however, I just couldn't wrap my head around why someone would really dislike this film. It's not perfect by any means. The movie does have its fair share of flaws, but to me, it delivered on exactly what I wanted from it. Kate Shortland was not afraid to make this movie her own. The cinematography and direction never feels stale or lacking in any personality like so many other MCU movies. Even though Spider-Man Homecoming is great and one of the best Spider-Man movies out there, it's bogged down by quite a lot of its boring and lifeless camera work. This is not the case with Black Widow. Taking influence from the likes of Paul Greengrass and some of the earlier Phase 1 movies, and even James Bond at some points, Black Widow has its own wholly unique blend of styles visually, and it really works. You can tell this movie was trying to stand out from the pack and be more straightforward about an action film, and more so an action spy movie. And a lot of that has to do with Kate Shortland's excellent direction. Black Widow is more of an action movie than a lot of the other MCU movies. It's more straightforward and to the point, which benefits it greatly. The story never had to be overly complicated or cramming in as many lighthearted jokes as humanly possible. It takes itself seriously enough to where I'm taking it seriously, but never goes overboard into being self-indulgent. The tone of this movie is great, and easily its biggest strong suit. There was never really a dull moment, with the majority of the movie being well shot and entertaining as hell, and a lot of really great action sequences. However, that doesn't mean the story isn't completely terrible as well. It's simple, yes, but it works for the movie immensely. It has intrigue, a menacing villain, strong family themes, and just an overall extremely tight and efficient narrative. Never being too much or too little, letting the movie be exactly what it wants to be, a really, really good action spy film. All of the performances were great as well. Scarlett Johansson really getting the spotlight here, and it just effortlessly stealing the show, proving that Black Widow isn't just a side character. Florence Pugh, who has been turning up in a ton of great roles lately, really kills it as Elena, Black Widow's sister. She has a decent amount of chemistry with ScarJo, and on her own she just gives a really solid performance. She's really funny, very likable, and just plays the character so well. She's becoming one of my favorite new actresses. And David Harbour also turns in another great performance, his character being one of my favorite parts of the movie. He was hilarious, charming, serious when he needed to be. David Harbour really, I don't know, he's one of those actors that's turning into, every single time, he's just killing it. He was fantastic in this film. I really, really loved his character. Black Widow for me is a breath of fresh air for the MCU. Not only was it extremely entertaining and technically sound, it gave ScarJo and in turn Black Widow a chance to really shine. This was exactly what I wanted out of a standalone Black Widow movie, and even a little more. It's really great to have a smaller scale, straightforward, to-the-point spy action movie every once in a while, that even without the context of the MCU, still holds up really well. However, that is kind of where the movie falters as well. For as much as I really enjoy it for being a simpler, to-the-point action movie, That's all it is. It never reaches beyond that in terms of quality, so I can't quite call it a masterpiece. Some of the story beats feel a little too familiar, and it never reaches the heights of some of the other better MCU movies. Which is not a bad thing whatsoever. I really enjoyed this movie for what it is. But there is a ceiling for how truly good these kinds of movies can be, and Black Widow doesn't ever really clear it. Which again isn't necessarily a knock against the movie itself, it's just the only criticism that I have for the movie. It's the only reason why I'm giving it the grade that I'm going to give it. It's just a really solid movie at what it's doing, but still it's not doing anything overly surprising, if that makes any sense. It's not wowing me in any way. It's just a really solid spy action thriller. And Black Widow seems more than content with being that. It does everything right that it needs to do, with great performances, strong writing and directing, and some really entertaining action sequences. And it never tries to be more than what it is, which is a problem that a lot of MCU movies have. I really respect Black Widow, and really enjoy it. Black Widow gets a B+ for me. Thank you so much for watching this review. I will have reviews for the Tomorrow War and the first 2 parts of Fear Street out very soon. Not sure when those will be out, but they will be out pretty shortly. So, yeah, I will see you guys later.